Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's going on, dude?
And on the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
And finally joining us today, we got Shizzy and Yagobi from the Ordinals Revolution podcast.
Welcome.
Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man, thank you, guys.
Yeah, good to have y'all here, dude. So some Ordinal OGs.
That's
You
right.
guys have seen it all just like we have. It's been, I think, the 2-year anniversary for Ordinals happened like yesterday or the day before or something like
Was
that.
it really?
Yeah, it's been 2 years, dude.
I can't
Can you
believe it.
believe that?
I can't believe it.
I can't either. It's pretty insane when you think about it. But yeah, now that it's 2 years old and we've been covering the space, both of us, like in our own respective channels, trying to like educate, I guess, as many people as we can through this platform and like what we do on Twitter and stuff, that there's something interesting happening on Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now like the market conditions are kind of changing in real time as opposed to 2 years ago. There was really nothing else interesting happening in the crypto market.
That's right.
Which is why like Ordinals had this like gravitational pull, at least for us, right? And I'm assuming for you guys as well. Give us like the contextual background for people, your experience over the last 1.5 to 2 years, just kind of entrenching yourself in this Ordinals ecosystem, the Bitcoin ecosystem, and kind of like where you see things positioned in the broader market. Just, introduce yourselves, in other words, like what you guys have been up to for the last couple of years in the space.
Yeah, man. I can take it first, if you don't mind. I've always been, in crypto since 2020. Really started digging in. I was Bitcoin maxi at the time. Didn't really like anything. Bought my first Bitcoin at like 8,000. I'm very, very happy about that. Kind of, just stick with Bitcoin. And then I realized I'm not making enough money. I'm seeing everyone else in BNB and just blowing up, right? Like everything else is making money. Really started digging in Bitcoin podcast. I used to be a CNC machinist. By trade. I used to have it earpiece in my ear all day long, listen to everything. 10 hours of just listening to crypto, learned as much as I possibly can. I really fell in love with DeFi. And that time Phantom was just coming alive. So I really started digging into Phantom, got in early in Beats and Scream and so many other projects. And then, really started to understand. But like when I was listening to podcasts at that time, I realized I know more than most of these people. Like they're so level one, and I discovered there's level 1 crypto, there's level 2, which is like MetaMask and stuff like that, and there's level 3, which is DeFi. And I felt like I was a level 3 guy, and I realized that I should maybe do this myself after watching people. So I started a podcast called DeFi Discussions. Me and another guy, this guy Niblets, we started doing the podcast together. He was very inconsistent. He couldn't, he just couldn't stand by a time. So he kept like, I can't do it this weekend. And then on Twitter, me and Yagobi were actually just messaging each other, and I was like, hey man, would you want to join my podcast? I was pretty desperate. Like I needed another someone else, and he seemed to really be really knowledgeable in our conversation, just in someone else's chat, right? Just messaging back and forth and like in messages, and he agreed. Well, he was a little bit. At first, he was like, I don't know, but then I guess he checked it out and decided to join, and then. You started doing DeFi discussions for about a couple months, and he was talking to me about this ordinal stuff, and I kind of let him take it from there.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went, exactly like that. And then I started seeing some stuff on my timeline about BRC20s and how the mempool was just really, backed up. And initially, I just laughed about, fungible tokens on Bitcoin, and I just looked at Bitcoiners with such disdain because of the maximalist mentality and how they treated everybody else, right? Even though my first crypto that I bought was Bitcoin in 2013. It was only a little bit, but sold it in a week, right? And so, but fast forward, we started researching BRC20s, and the light bulb went above my head, and I was like, hold on for a second. On Bitcoin, this could be big. And we started diving in, and I saw the first project was the Council, if you guys remember back then, right?
Yep.
And I got into some of that, and I was telling Shizzy, and he was kind of like, I don't know, man. Like this stuff looks so clunky, and it was. And I was like, but just what if though? What if, what if it can take off? And kind of the rest of the story, I think a lot of people already know. Like fast forward, Ordinals kind of had its own bull markets and bear markets separate from the rest of the crypto space that was going through, the end of the bear market. And then, one of the things I'll say is that I remember when we first started, and we were still under DeFi discussions, I saw one of the block runners kind of hype videos or like preview videos. And I was like, these guys like have master editors, man. So shout out to TJ if he's the one that does all that for y'all, because y'all definitely look like y'all are, high quality content for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, TJ, he's the one who really put all this like technology together, and
right.
Yeah, he doesn't get enough credit. So thank you, TJ.
Yeah.
You're welcome, guys.
Give that man a raise.
Claps for TJ, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I'll do that too.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes. And Shizzy, I got a lot of respect for you because, starting a YouTube channel by yourself and like trying to manage everything, like just starting off, it's a ton of work. I mean, you guys know now, like it takes a lot of effort doing the research and then having enough content to be able to talk about it. And it's a lot of work. I mean, it doesn't appear like it's a lot of work, but when you really dig into it, it's like all of a sudden it's like, man, I gotta do some editing. It's like, okay, if I don't do editing, then how do I record myself in a way where I can just upload it as is? And then you got to not make any mistakes. And it's like, it's a whole mess.
Yeah. The trick is lives. Lives change everything for us because you can't edit a live, right?
Yeah.
It's just out there. So, yeah, but like back then when I first started doing it, it was so weird. Like I'd work, from 6 a.m. till 4 p.m. I'd get home, eat dinner with my family and come down here. But it was so weird. It would just give me so much energy, right? Like I never felt that before, sitting at my desk and just being crazy tired at 3 p.m. But then 6 p.m. I'm at my desk and just enjoying it. Like I just love this stuff so much. And it probably sounds crazy, but when you're passionate about something, it just gives you energy the entire time you're doing it. And I think that's what really kind of pushed me forward. Was just, it was so weird. I still can't explain it, how much energy crypto gives me.
Yeah. We feel exactly the same way. I mean, if you were to hang out with us, like here at the office, like, and just listen to us, like all day we're talking about crypto all day.
Yeah.
And it's pretty weird. Like everyone who's listening around us, they're like, what the hell's wrong with these guys? They don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Like, how does your like external environment, I guess, like, how react to
or support what you're doing?
Yeah.
Dude, everyone thinks I'm nuts. Like that's why I quit my CNC machinist in May, and everyone just stopped talking to me after a while because every conversation was, Bitcoin solves this, right? And it's just like, all right, well, that's done talking to this guy. So I was just in the back of the shop by myself with an earpiece. So I mean, and my wife, she thought I was crazy until she started seeing the gains, right?
Yeah.
And then that changed everything. My family thought I was nuts until they started seeing the gains and created our own company, right? Ordinals Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's typically what it takes. And I keep telling Will that. It's like, how come people don't listen to me when I tell them to buy Bitcoin and stuff? It's like, well, you don't convey like gains, dude. You're not out there, riding around in the right vehicles.
Right.
Your watch here, pretty basic, pretty lame. Things like that, right? That's typically what like the normies respond to, as far as like, that's the indication. I should probably listen more to this guy, right? But nonetheless, like now I think we're in gains season, right?
That's right.
So the idea, as far as like content producers, is always to be like, I don't know, you have to be, like you're saying, passionately
paying attention,
invested into what it is you're doing your own like due diligence on, right? Otherwise, like how are you going to maintain that level of like commitment, right?
Yeah.
Because this space moves so damn quick.
Yeah.
And then you always have this feeling in the back of your head, is like, you're hyper focused on this one sector of what's happening in crypto, but I'm missing out on the rest. Because as cycles continue on, we have like thousands of chains now.
Yeah.
And they all, assuming, have some sense of viability. Like, I think last cycle, I never would have predicted Solana would have like outpaced Ethereum at some point with like its innovation and its developer onboarding. But that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yep.
Right. So these are these unforeseeable occurrences that are happening in real time. So how do you guys manage that? Because we're at that inflection point in a bit, right? We originated from Ethereum. That's what was interesting to us like 4 or 5 years ago, right? DeFi, NFTs, Metaverse, all this shit came from Ethereum. Then it's like everything crashed away.
Yeah.
Then it's like, wow, there's like an innovative spirit emerging from Bitcoin and Ordinals, right? So we need to hone in on that. But then it's like now it's starting to see like it's emerging elsewhere again, right? So what do you guys? How do you interpret that? What are the signals you guys are seeing in the market? How are you planning on reacting to it all?
Yeah. So I'll take this one. So I think being in the Bitcoin ecosystem does help some, but it also, with how fast things are growing in the Bitcoin ecosystem, it can get tough at times as well, right? So you do kind of have to select, I guess, different parts of the ecosystem that you're more interested in naturally. And I think, you guys have seen that with yourselves, same with us, and we see that in counterparts, right, in each other. And so, being able to be, proficient and I guess subject matter expert in that specific part of the ecosystem is important. But also, you're right, you do need to take a step back and say, what am I missing here? And sometimes, we try to do that like once a week, just kind of zoom out a bit and see what else is going on. And I think it's important to zoom out to even outside of the Bitcoin ecosystem and just to see, what's happening, right? Because like I mentioned before, in Ordinals and Bitcoin fungibles for the past, almost 2 years now, we've had our own little bull runs and bear markets, right? And so this is the first time that Bitcoin's had an on-chain economy this robust, and because of that, like we were beneficiaries of that, right? And so now it's like, what are we focused on now? We're focused on the parts of the ecosystem that we feel like has that longevity, that sustainability, and that was one of the things that made us revisit DMT. Was I loved the kind of sophistication behind it, in my opinion, utilizing the data from each block and stuff like that. I really thought that was really cool. But I think the everyday listener, especially in our audience, was kind of trying to wrap their head around it, right? And so that's what made us kind of revisit it and realize, hey, this is something that we think is going to be around for a long time, with obviously other things in the space as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, what we have the ability to like, sift through all the stuff that's happening in crypto, and we're able to see like a lot of the value that's being generated. Like, for example, when it came to the memes, like Iman was like, "Will, we gotta look into memes." I'm like, "Iman, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. That's not gonna last long."
All right.
And then he showed me the video from Murad. I was like, "Wait a minute. There's like a mind shift that happens that is happening here that made me really understand what memes actually were, which is essentially a community generation device in the same way that we saw NFTs, right? Because at the time when NFTs were popping off, it was like art, and it's like, how do you determine which art to like get into? It's like it felt random, but what it was, it's like another community generation device,
right?
And so when it comes to like us in building, like we see things that seem to have fundamental value, like in the way that we saw Bitmap having fundamental value, and we just like use like Bitmap's idea and leverage the platformatization of it in the form of DMT, and allows anybody to kind of reinterpret block data into whatever they want, PFPs, art, whatever it is. And so it's definitely, something that does take some effort for people to understand. But once it clicks, all of a sudden it's like, this is something interesting. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys looking into it and going deeper into it, because, with everything in crypto, you got to just go deeper when it's, at first it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's important, I guess. I know you guys are looking out for market signals, right? Because that's also what we do regularly. So it's more than just a good narrative, right? There has to be that invisible hand, like indicating to you that the idea has some reception, right? Or some sensible adoption to it, right? It can't just be a good idea,
right?
So which is important in determining, what it is you should be navigating your focus and your attention to, right? So. I guess it's a good like segue to kind of explore like where the invisible hand's positioning is in context of like the Bitcoin ecosystem. Because there's a lot of new options, right? In the beginning days, like you're talking about, you're right. We kind of already went through like phase one of like a bull market on the Bitcoin ecosystem. I didn't like truly realize it at the time. I guess it was pretty obvious. Like Bitmap did like a 300x.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ordi and like other tokens did like 1000x's and stuff. Natcats did like several thousand x. So really insane upside opportunities were happening in real time. You just didn't really realize it, I guess. But looking back, it's like, that was definitely pretty bullish.
Yeah.
Even though it was like a microcosm of like a bull ecosystem. But it's kind of reminiscent to like, when DeFi took off in 2020, right? It was still like a bearish time period, but there was like a microcosm of bullishness within the Ethereum space.
DeFi did have its little bubble, but it was not easy to see that you were in a bubble when you're looking at it in real time.
Yeah. So I guess, like you said, Yagobi, the question is now it's like, okay, what next? What do you guys foresee is like, okay, we can't just keep spinning up meta protocols all day, right? Or new shitcoin generation devices and like we already got all that, right? So what is the next frontier, you think, for specifically in the Bitcoin space?
So I personally think that the virtual machine part of things is getting really competitive, right? And I think there's two components to that. There's the part that they have their own kind of network approvers, but they also have their own network in general, which have builders on there. That's something like Arch Network or Tap, right? And then you have more of the servicer, the B2B side, which is like Bitcoin OS or beyond. And I think that, the reason why I say that, I think it's needed for infrastructure, right? Because right now there isn't these UTXO developers, they're not sharing a similar language like the EVM developers do, right? Like they all share Solidity over there. Over here, they have their own kind of language, right? Like for example, the BSVers are everywhere. I feel like, right? So they have their own script, whatever it's called, S script.
Yeah.
And then you have Cardano that's trying to come into this UTXO world, and they have their own language. And so to make things interoperable within the UTXO ecosystem, they need to share a similar language. And I think that unless that happens, it's going to be hard to grow and have, trust minimized bridging. And so I think that's the biggest like arms race that's not being talked about right now.
That's interesting. With Tap, they've collaborated with ICP to essentially use the ICP network and smart contracts there to manipulate the UTXOs. And I know that Arch Network, and I know that Cardano and Bitcoin OS, they have like similar concepts. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, if you have an asset on L1, you need to be able to leverage a bunch of these technologies to access like what they offer in a very efficient way. And so I think that's probably one of the things that isn't really considered all that often, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because essentially, like Tap has delivered on that, and like there's a layer one DEX right now in Taproot swap, right? And we're not seeing like this rush in like ecosystem utilization for it, right?
Yeah.
So it begs the question, like, the original thesis of like why it's important to build on Bitcoin is like this $2 trillion like dormant liquidity that everybody theorizes. Like all you got to do is like introduce the right rails for this asset.
There's a chance
natively.
There's a chance that the primitives are not there yet to facilitate what you're talking about. It could be stable coins. What if that unlocks that flow of injection of like $2 trillion, right? So maybe it's just the infrastructure is not complete yet to really facilitate that.
Yeah, what do you guys think as far as like what is going to be that inflection point to? Because you guys originated from like a DeFi background. Like, what is in your mind, like the DeFi on Bitcoin like inflection point? Is it more like a new use case for DeFi or
additional infrastructure that's needed?
Yeah, well, the biggest problem with Taproot swap is the liquidity. Liquidity is number one, right? You get the liquidity there, and there's not much of, if I put in $1,100, I want to get $1,100 back, right? I don't want to get 900. I think that's kind of the problem. Obviously, you have that with the TAP token, you have that with the NAT token, and a few other ones, but there's not much. And to your point there, a stable coin is the most important thing because Bitcoin maxis, if we want them to use our DeFi, they only want to do two things. They want to, buy in a bear market and sell in a bull, right? They love the 4-year cycle. That's what they do. And if we can give them a decentralized way to do that, where they're coming in, they're selling their Bitcoin at, 400K and they're buying it back at 150K. That's all they care about. It's all they want to do. But we can provide that for them using something like Taproot Swap and other swaps that are coming for Arch and many other places as well. So I think that is going to be somewhere that is going to be definitely big for us, but that's kind of later in the cycle, right? These guys are not going to sell their Bitcoin right now. It's stupid. And everyone understands that, January, February, and March are going to be the most bullish months for Bitcoin in general. And then maybe they want to get into other stuff. Maybe that's when they want to get a little bit more degen and they want to get into something like the NAT token or something like the TAP token or even the track token when it's available as a TAP token. So I just think that time is coming, and I think in March that's when a lot of these DeFi applications need to be available, and that's when they'll be utilized.
I wanted to say one more thing on top of that. So I think, and unfortunately, this is just kind of how the crypto industry is, especially whenever you get more specific with a specific ecosystem. But I think the Bitcoin ecosystem is gotten more and more political, right? So in a sense, let me give you an example. So why is Taproot Swap not getting a bunch of adoption? And I think it's because, number one, Tap has its own fungible token standard, right? So now that goes against a competing standard of someone else that might have a strong pull in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So they're going to not necessarily push people towards that. In fact, they will push people away from it into another competitor that's doing something similar, maybe the Arch network or maybe, Bitcoin OS or something like that. What I think can benefit from all these, solutions is a language. If they all can kind of get together on a scripting language and say, hey, look, you can have your own ecosystem for your token standard. I have mine, but we utilize this universal scripting language together. Then we can start bridging, interoperable with each other, right? But I think that's the biggest issue right now. Like liquidity, obviously, Shizzy pointed out, that's an issue, but liquidity is an issue because there's no large rush to it, like Iman said, right? And so I think having that universal kind of congruency together and say, hey, look, this is the goal here is to be able to utilize the same scripting language and we all succeed in the end with that. I think that would be the best approach. But again, there's a lot of politics and it's getting heavy with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. You guys definitely understand, I guess, like
For sure.
that I think you guys just encapsulated like the current state of like what's happening in the ecosystem. That is the biggest problem, right? It's the fragmentation of the liquidity itself, and like there's naturally brewed biases as a result of like all these competing systems essentially that are all essentially trying to achieve the same goals, right?
Yeah.
But different technical implementations of how to do that. So it is a bit of a problem, a bit of a conundrum. It kind of reminds me a lot of like our days in the metaverse. It's like similar issues, right? It's like multiple different technology stacks trying to aid developers in creating these virtual ecosystems and stuff. But they don't communicate with one another. They're silos, right? Therefore, there is no interoperability layer between them, right? That's a big issue of what's going on in Ethereum and why we thought Bitmap is a potential solution to all of this, right? At least like there's a vector of potential to do it the right way in the Bitcoin ecosystem, right?
Yeah, and from our perspective, we figured that the applications that get the most traction would garner the most attention, right? At least like market attention. So when it comes to like the competitors like Tap and Arch and Bitcoin OS, it's like where are all the developers building? Right. That to us, that's like a signal to us to look into that ecosystem. And for us, when we were trying to, come up with DMT, there was really no other place to build it right at the time. And, we looked at BRC20s, we looked at, launching our own like token standard. And like to us, it just didn't make sense to like go at it by ourselves. And using Tap like just enabled so much for us to just like focus on the meta protocol and not all the like the other stuff that developers shouldn't be focused on, like indexing. And so yeah, like for us, like to look for different technologies, it's like, where are the devs at? And that tends to be like kind of where we like focus our like attention, especially for the like the podcast. But yeah, I mean, if there was some sort of way that we can like, combine like efforts here, that would be the most ideal situation. I just don't know, like technically, if that's, how you're going to go about it.
Yeah, I guess that's that's the opportunity for like a new Vitalik essentially to emerge.
So yeah, some sort of abstraction layer.
Yeah, an abstraction and like you're saying, a new language of sorts that kind of like intertwines this entire like ecosystem into like a unified like system.
Yeah, because think about it, like all these like technologies, they have the same constraints.
Yeah. Right.
They just go about solving those constraints in different ways. And so and all of it to like accomplish a DEX, accomplish stable coins and the primitives that are necessary to unlock that $2 trillion asset.
Yeah, I guess that's why Ethereum was created in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe Vitalik was right, dude.
We may have just like reran the simulation all over again.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? We just need to create another chain.
Yeah.
It's like we just need to redo Ethereum.
Well, I did want to add in there, like for Arch Network, their primary language I think is Rust, and I'm not sure what Tap is using for. Do you guys know?
I think it's JavaScript and Node.js.
Okay, so already we're off on different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like if they both used Rust or they both use JavaScript, then it would be like, okay, this could be like a ecosystem, but it's like they're doing the same things using different languages.
Yeah, that's right.
You're seeing the same thing happen in the AI agent space right now. It's like all these different frameworks like Eliza and Game by Virtuals. They have their own native coding languages as well. So like they're eventually they're gonna arrive at the same problem. We're just
but I think the end game is like everyone has their own interpretation on whether to use JavaScript or Rust, but the end game is like, what do devs do with what was built? And if they come up with something that has traction, then that little application that was built, whatever it may be, that's like the thing that attracts the attention. And so I think that's the real race here, not so much like how you do it. It's like what's the end result, right? And so like for example, DMT, like there's some traction there, right? It's not the all end game or anything, but it is a new tool that people are leveraging to kind of reinterpret block data, and there's not a whole lot of like additional building on top of meta protocols beyond that, as far as we can tell.
Yeah, as like, in DeFi and stuff like that, it's all about finding the yield, right? So until like right now, we have these amazing like things going on, different, we have Tap, track and everything and Arch, but like there's no apps that are really like out there and I can use right now. Like I would love to take my DMT asset, my NatCat, right, and then be able to get yield on that, and in a decentralized way. I mean, right now you can do that with Liquidity and stuff like that, but there needs to be stuff built on top of that to give me reason to hold these things. Maybe something like I can take that, put that in some kind of application and gamble it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all degens here, right? Yeah. But you don't want to do that with I mean, that's the fun part, right? Like I can go play in TradFi if I want a 4 or 5x, but I'm here because I want that 100x, and I'm okay with taking some losses sometimes in order to eventually achieve that. Like I'm not okay with living. To me, I either want to be rich or poor. There's no in between. Middle class, the white picket fence. That's not me. Like I either want to be rich or poor. I get the benefits of being poor. I get welfare and stuff, but you know what I mean. At least, but when I don't want to be middle class. So for me, I just always want to trying to find that 50x, that 100x, and it's been working out. But in order to do that, we need people to build these dApps to give people these oppormunities.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I like that philosophy, swinging for the fence.
Yeah,
or the home run.
It's a good strategy in crypto.
Well, just in general, right?
Yeah.
That's you've been that swinger for like 15 years, dude. You're like, I remember it's like everyone else, like I think off camera we told you about our relationship, right? He grew up with my older brother. right? And I was just like the little kid, like watching these.
He was trying to hang out with the cool kids.
Yeah, right. I was trying to show them like how to be cool. It's like you guys suck, but yeah, like their little friend group. Everybody went to do the normal shit, right? You know, get the job and just live life how it's supposed to be done because it's safe. But
yeah,
this guy has always been trying to swing for the fence, and that's like, dude, that's admirable. Well, it's because I know it's tough, it's hard. Here we are 15 years later, dude. It's like
still swinging, dude.
Fucking swinging.
Yeah.
Right. So it is. I totally resonate with that, and I understand, and that's why we're trying so hard to like deliver something unique and original and like something native to the Bitcoin, like what it is we discovered as far as like what's interesting natively about the building on this Bitcoin space, right? We've people might not agree with us. Everything we've seen so far, observed in the Ordinals and Runes ecosystems is like, you could do this stuff basically on any other chain. Yeah, it has that like that innate new property of like, it's on Bitcoin and stuff, but still like the market doesn't interpret that as like something new, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's because it isn't. Like, it's just more art. It's more shit coins, more memes, whatever. It's on Bitcoin. That's the new thing, but the act of leveraging these innate properties that has these like physics value properties to it, the thermodynamic principles of it, because so much energy is being injected into the sustainment of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
it alludes to like a new discovery of like a new substrate layer, right? So we figured like this is the new thing Bitcoin introduces.
Yeah,
right?
You couldn't do this on any other chain. It just doesn't have the same effect. And we're not the first ones to attribute physics to Bitcoin. We just understand what that means, and we're applying what essentially Bitmap did, but in a way where anyone can interpret the block data in any way that they want, right? If you want to interpret the block data in a PFP format or in like a Metaverse house, right, a dynamic Metaverse house, like you could do that. And so, when we were coming up with DMT, it was just about like, how do we introduce something new and novel that, the crypto community hasn't seen yet in a way that only applies to Bitcoin, because we transitioned from Ethereum to Bitcoin. It's like, what can we do here that we can't do anywhere else?
Pretty much.
And really it just like culminated into, what we call DMT, but it's just it's a narrative that can only happen on Bitcoin. Like it doesn't have the same.
It can happen on other chains,
right?
But
like technically can happen, but it doesn't have the physics parallel.
Agreed. Yeah. So I guess that's like a segue into like the DMT segment of the conversation, right? Because you guys have kind of seen the whole thing with like Bitmap, right? You guys, your logo is a Bitmap, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Give us like your take us back to those days, your gut reaction, your instinctual gravitation towards. Did you see what we saw of like why Bitmap was interesting, or was it more just like a metaverse is forming on Bitcoin, so can't fade that? Like what was it that brought you guys in?
You guys definitely had a head start on us. I was the first out of me and Shizzy because I was paying more attention at that time, I think, into the different parts of the new Bitcoin ecosystem, right? But I remember when Bitmap first started, right? Like Bitoshi came out with the standard. You guys were, heavily kind of supportive in that after you understood the concept. I actually didn't understand the concept at first. I just was kind of like, okay. I remember I think I like replied to one of y'all's comments with like, because I knew you guys were from Houston, you had mentioned it, and I kind of like, okay, here's like the Civic Center, here's like this and that, and I was like, oh, okay. And then afterwards, I was like, that's not how it works, like on the actual blocks, right?
Yeah.
But once I did understand it, I thought it was genius because it really sets up a great decentralized way to do land plots, right? Or kind of that aspect of it. And I think that was the biggest appeal once it clicked in people's brains. They were like, oh my God, this is going to be huge. And the supply wasn't out of, wasn't outrageous, right? It was controlled by, how many blocks are mined and etc. Right. So once I actually got in I was able to inscribe 4 digits. I think like maybe like 4 or 5 4-digit bitmaps. So I was about that early. But then Shizzy, once he kind of understood it, it clicked for him. And then the thing about Shizzy, he is a guy that goes for the fences because like he either doesn't invest in something or he over invests in something. He like went hard. He was like, I'm going for 1,000. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, that's kind of the breakdown on it.
Yeah, to a point, Yagobi, he reached out to me, like he was like, "Yo, check these things out. They're bitmaps." And I, at first I was like, like, what is this? But then I remember what was going on at the end of, the bull market in 2021. That's when everyone's really started digging into the metaverse stuff, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like on the outside looking in. I looked at Sandbox. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I looked at with the other one. What's the other one called? Sandbox and Decentralized. I was watching Decentralized. I was looking at OpenSea, checking them out, and then once I realized that Bitmap could be this for Bitcoin, it just clicked. And that was the point where I sat at my computer for 3 hours, just sitting there grabbing every single bitmap I could possibly grab. And then even going to Magic Eden when they first got listed, and they were there $7 at the time. I was like, this is so cheap. Looking at Decentraland, looking at Sandbox. I mean, the lands are still way more expensive than that, right? So I just grabbed up as many as I possibly could, and I just kept doing it. And, just because of that idea of somebody's going to build something with these. And again, it's not about the assets, it's about what people build with that asset.
Right.
It'll never be about the asset itself, but about what you can do with it. And again, that clicked for me again because it was like people are going to build cool stuff with this, and I'm on the ground floor is something special. And being in DeFi, I wasn't there. I was a Bitcoin maxi at the time when DeFi really kicked off, so I came in late, and this was my opportunity to be early to something. And that's what I know I'm going to get rich on. I'm going to get rich on being that person who got in early to something and just believed in it enough to make, insane amount of money. And that's what I saw with Bitmap. That's what I still see with Bitmap.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we see the same thing, and you saw it from a different perspective. Like you saw like the potential value of the metaverse and the Web3 value of the metaverse compared to like the Web3 value of the Bitcoin metaverse. Is like there's a huge discrepancy. So that's like a no-brainer.
True.
But with us, what we saw was like specifically just a complete reimagination of a Web3 metaverse.
Yeah.
Right. It is no longer just like an arbitrary set of land that someone just picked out of thin air and just like sold land. Like that wasn't it. And the fact that these things to mint were like $1.50, like it was like a no brainer too.
Right.
And the ability that the numbers are based off of Bitcoin, like that was like a game changing thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, as soon as we saw it, and Batoshi, when he reached out, I was like, this is obviously like great.
Yeah.
And
just check too many newness boxes for us, because we spent years already like investigating the metaverse space like at its core.
Yeah.
And so we basically have seen everything, but that was genuinely like the first time where Will's like, dude, you got to see this. I'm like, why, dude? It's like,
yeah, there was only a handful of times that has happened. It was like Bitmap, and then it was BitTensor.
Yeah.
And I think that was there's maybe like two others.
BRC20s too.
BRC20s, yeah, that was a good one.
We had the same reaction. It was like, hold up. It was like shitcoins on Bitcoin. It's like, what?
Yeah,
huh?
all in, right?
Yeah, that was a huge mind pivot for me, because I never saw. I mean, I knew Bitcoin was a big deal. I just was never attracted to the idea of like owning Bitcoin, because I was more, I guess I have my roots are like in the degen / like I just like to see the action of like things evolving.
Yeah, right? You're in it for the 100x, 1000x potential. Bitcoin, it did that, but it's not going to always do that.
It's the entertainment potential, of course, but it's also like the storyline, the progression. Like last cycle was so cool just watching. Like the early believers in NFTs, right? And like we were there, people were like in their little drum circles talking about like the future of NFTs. Like at some point, people are gonna like this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? We're like, I don't know how, but somehow. And then before you know it, like artists start to make really cool art with this technology.
Yeah.
And then a Beeple comes in, makes $69 million or whatever the hell selling his art, and it's like, oh shit. This is what's going to happen.
This is it, yeah.
And then you got like 1 million PFP collections, right? So just like seeing that progression of like from early like believers to like full scale adoption. Like,
and you know what's crazy? The metaverse, even though it had like its like version of explosion in 2021, thanks to Mark Zuckerberg, it hasn't really like exploded
at all.
Like that's what we saw in 2021 is nothing. Right. And there's, we keep talking about this in the podcast, is there's a lot of macroeconomics, situations that allude to all of us spending a lot more time in the metaverse. And many people are going to be losing their jobs just because of technology. Really, it's really that simple. And so, like, what are the rest of us going to do? But you know what? One thing that, I guess the next topic here that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the one thing that probably throws a wrench into that theory is AI agents. Because right now it's like, the idea is we're going to spend a lot of time in the metaverse, but now with these AI agents, they're going to be doing our job in the metaverse as well. Not only is AI going to take over like the physical world, but it might even take over the virtual world. So, so what do you guys seen so far with AI agents and the application on Bitcoin so far?
So one thing I want to say is I think that the metaverse, I think you're right about it. We haven't seen anything yet, but I think its trajectory is going to follow kind of the AI trajectory, right? Like to where the tech wasn't ready for AI 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever they were trying to make a push in the crypto space with AI actually. But now it is. Like the tech is actually ready for it. And so that's how these AI agents are like coming about. And I think the Bitcoin space, you have kind of fun projects with like Butoshi that created his AI agent, and now there's the rune of Cypher Genesis and stuff like that. I think Butoshi is actually good for the Bitcoin ecosystem. He does like to experiment a lot, and he has been working on this AI for a while. But then you have like projects like Emblem Vault that has an amazing dev in Shannon that has been building an AI agent, and it has completed the Solana version and is going to be completing the Bitcoin and Ethereum version very soon, I think by the end of this quarter. And so that's something that's exciting because these types of products, in my opinion, are going to help mass adoption occur more quickly because, AI right now is a skill set that's being taught or learned by way more numbers than crypto is right now. Like in terms of like how to use the MetaMask. People at their corporate jobs have learned how to use ChatGPT. People are trying to like really get good at this skill set because they know that there's going to be a prompt type of skill set that is going to be needed. Even if like AI cuts out a lot through automation, I think AI prompting is going to be a very sought after skill set, and so I think that's kind of where we are with this space, and I think it's going to grow in Bitcoin.
Yeah, we tend to agree. I mean, this AI thing, I guess a personal question for you guys is, are you guys looking at AI like applications to kind of help you do your job like more these days, or like have you found anything that like really helps you out like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, ChatGPT. Without ChatGPT, I can't. It's show notes. It's it's everything, right? It's even correcting grammar on messages to like potential partners and stuff like that. It's where I don't want to make any mistakes. So I live with ChatGPT. Like it's always on my computer, and so that's my number one. But like, so with the AI agents and stuff like that, it's cool. But like, I like doing the trades myself. Like I don't need an AI agent to go buy me a bitmap, right? I like to go there, get that feel for it. But maybe I'm the new old school, right? I mean, when it comes to that stuff, but it's like I don't need an agent to buy my bitmap. I can do it myself. But it is always an amazing option, and there's gonna be new people that come in and want to do that type of stuff. And maybe they want to do fast trading. Maybe they want to tell the bot, hey, sell it at this price, buy it at this price. And that's just something that I don't do. But I love the assistant. It's awesome, and I use it daily. But like, I don't know if I need it in crypto right now. But I'm also a guy who fades everything at first, and it takes me time to really kind of dig in, and maybe that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
What do you typically look for, Shizzy? Like if you fade everything at first, like what is the non-fadeable threshold in your mind?
So let's just say with DMT, for instance, right? In the beginning, I was disbeliever. I was like, what is this, right? So you guys came out with it. You guys were explaining it like over and over. I would go to the spaces that you guys are on. I just didn't get the concept. I just didn't get it. But then when mScribe came out, right? It's just a weird feeling I get. I just like, oh, wow, this is cool. And I guess when the first time that, I forget which minute it was. It might have been the Royals. Where I actually minted it live with you guys. I was like, oh, I get this now. And that's when I got the kind of almost FOMO. It's where I went and got a Nat Cat, right? So it's weird. Maybe it's FOMO that I need to hit. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's like I just don't like missing out on stuff. I love being early to stuff. So for me, I just need that. It's a feel, man. It's so weird. I just can't explain it.
Yeah, I think I definitely tend to agree. It's like with this whole meme stuff, like there's so much money being thrown around. It's like, dude, what do we do here? Like as like a podcast, do we like talk about memes? Like how do
Yeah.
what do you even say? And then it's like, okay, and then as a business, like what do we do here?
If we all need like pump.fun
Yeah.
verticals, right? Everybody who's doing anything is like, you better
Yeah.
funify your business.
And there was elements of FOMO from that respect. It's like, if this is the thing, it's like, how do we even like partake, right?
right.
Yeah. Well, you can kind of see already the same blueprint being played out from last cycle in terms of forks, right? Now, I think the forks this time with protocols are more intricate in terms of the platform build outs. Like last cycle, it was the fork tune or the tomb forks, or the ohm forks, right? Like all these kind of really Ponzi-nomics kind of house of cards type of, protocols. But this cycle, it's more in depth, but still kind of copy paste, right? Example like Polymarket. Now you have predictions markets on Bitcoin, on Solana, on different things, right? Same things happening with the pump fund strategy. People are forking that in a sense, but the fork is definitely not as forkable as it was. Like the EVM forking, dude, that was literally copy and paste because you could utilize that on every chain, right? And that's the thing. Maybe we don't need one single language because then that would bring back the house of cards again. But I think that's what we're going through. But I will say I am glad that the protocols have more depth to them. Like a predictions market isn't like a scam, a Ponzi scam. It is a gambling platform. You're placing bets, but at least you know what you're getting into. It's not like, oh, you're gonna make all this money if you stake in this and then restake and restake and restake. So it's getting better, but I still think we probably have I don't know, maybe a couple years away until like we get these more structured businesses, like literal business models into almost every new protocol and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the prediction markets are interesting because there's a lot of I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and they talk about these prediction markets as like a kind of like a crowdsourced like method to know the future, right? And it's actually relevant when you put money against it. Because if you just get a bunch of people to predict the future, it tends to be wrong. But if you get the same group of people to put money about what the future is going to look like, they tend to be right. And so I think the founder like is getting indicted or something. Like, do you remember that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Why? Because they made. Oh, I see.
Because of Trump and they predicted Trump. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Every single state was predicted correctly. That was the wild part.
Yeah.
What?
And then
right.
so they didn't. He's not being indicted, I don't think, unless there was new news from it. But they did do an FBI search of his place and his phone and stuff like that. But,
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. So my kind of prediction of predictions markets is they're going to be companies are going to try to source them for data. I'll put it 100%. That way. So that's where I think a big business model is going to come from. And then is it decentralized at that point? Like you don't have a name to the wallet address. So I guess like they don't know who you are. I don't know.
Yeah, that is interesting. But yeah, the guy did get searched by the FBI. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's hyper weird. I don't know if that's just more like
yeah.
Biden throwing his last jabs before.
It could be, and what happened to the tornado guy is like similar kind of effect.
Yeah.
But we got a few more minutes left, guys. I heard in a Twitter space that we were on that you were launching something DMT related. You guys want to go into detail?
Yeah. So as your audience might know, I'm not sure if they do know, but one of our partners is Foxy, which has created the Foxy Bitverse and the Clan Wars first-person shooter game. And so we partnered up to develop the Satoshi Silencer, which is a sniper rifle in that first-person shooter game. We branded them with our Ordinals Revolution brand, as well as made 3 different types of snipers. I would say 3 different colors of snipers. And we are excited about it because it is a DMT project. It made sense to use the DMT protocol for this. And we're just really excited about it because this is a product that we want to be available for multiple worlds that utilize DMT protocol. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be an exclusive sniper rifle for the Foxy Clan Wars game, but so there's a white color, an orange, and a teal. And each has like a certain amount of ammo. So the white is the basic level, which has 3 ammo rounds. The teal is the mid-tier level with 6 ammo rounds, and the orange is the premium level with 9 ammo rounds. And so, we're just super excited about it, man.
So this is gonna function like literally like a sniper rifle, right? Like a bolt action sniper rifle, maybe like within the actual like first person shooter game itself, right?
Exactly. And so, we've done a couple live streams to where when we've played the Clan Wars game in the test mode, they just have it available to anybody. But you can, get on top of a roof and, use the scope and all that good stuff. So it's going to be fun because of the exclusivity, I think. And then, they look pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, this is insane. You're bringing me back to my glory days of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Like Black Ops 1, World at War, like those are the good times. Like playing as a sniper class.
It was actually pretty impressive. I watched Iman play a couple of times. I was actually genuinely impressed how good he was.
Yeah, how big of a loser I was. like I literally spent all my time like trying to be that guy, that 360 no scoper out there, like trying to make YouTube montage videos. That was literally how I discovered YouTube, like in like 2009, 2008. Really? Huh. Literally to make like I needed to show people how great I was at sniping. It's like, oh, here's this video platform I could do it on. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So this is really
there's one. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there was one other detail I left off, and it was we actually are going to utilize fluid staking vaults after the mint. So if you do mint, the Satoshi Silencer sniper rifle, you will have a chance to stake that right away, which is a Bitcoin layer 1 protocol. So they can it uses block lock technology to a certain block height, and once you hit that time frame, then you can unstake your assets along with your reward. And so what we're doing as a team is we're taking half of the proceeds of this mint and throwing it into the staking vault. So people will have a chance to earn some of their mint back, if not all of their mint, or maybe more. It depends on how many participants are involved with the staking.
So do you have pricing for this and like timelines and all that?
Yeah, we do. So the pricing is going to be $40. And then the total quantity is 2,600. We are doing a whitelist for our Ordinals Revolution pass holders, as well as our YouTube channel paid memberships. So we're going to gather, the addresses for those, and they're going to get a whitelist mint that's separate from the main mint. Sure. And then the timeline is going to be we're shooting for the middle of January, maybe possibly around that timeline. But yeah, we just want to make sure it's seamless. Obviously, everybody wants their mint to be seamless, right? But and we're excited to have, if you guys are good with it, do it with mScribe. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I know for the Foxy team, I know Ordy, I know that guy busts his ass in terms of like always building like the coolest tech, and this gun is very like aesthetically attractive. I don't even know if we can share this image that you shared with us.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we'll put in the video. We'll have it pop up here, it's really interesting kind of to see the development here and how Foxy is able to kind of inject, the contextual social awareness, like you guys being able to supply it's like cool, like weaponry like this. And it's such a good like method for partnerships to like develop, within like the Bitmap ecosystem.
Yeah. One of the things I was talking to Shizzy about on our Twitter space was like, this is definitely like a full circle moment. Like, a year ago from deploying like a protocol on Bitcoin, with this like radical idea to, the actual execution of a really cool product that people will actually want.
Yeah.
that it kind of demonstrates like kind of the point, right? You could essentially create so many different verticals of like viability, whether it doesn't have to just be art, it doesn't have to be like a meme coin. It could be
100%.
something that's custom tailored to like a game experience, like what Foxy's building.
Yeah.
And leveraging this protocol, creating a very cool product. Right?
Yeah, a bit miner is like the first DMT asset that mines assets, right?
Yeah.
And then this is going to be like the first like game asset, like weapon asset for for the Foxy ecosystem.
Yeah, in essence, if this thing makes you a better like performer, I guess in the ecosystem sense, it's generating yield as well. Right?
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
If it gives you some kind of edge, I don't know if I guess it's up to the the Foxy team how badass you could become with this rifle. I mean, if you practice enough, I'm assuming you'll be pretty great.
Yeah.
Just watch my old YouTube videos.
That's the thing too. It's like, when you're playing the Foxy game, if you don't have the sniper rifle, it sucks. Yeah. Like, because the guys are so far away and you have to run up and then you potentially get sniped off. So it's like, you kind of need it in the game. So that's kind of where we want. But this isn't an asset to get rich on. There's, not to buy it and kind of go up in value. The thing is, it's an in-game asset. This is a gun inside the game. And this is kind of our thank you to the people who's been supporting us from the beginning. The people who hold our passes, the people who subscribe to us month after month to get our members only videos and stuff like that. This is a give back to them. Yeah. And that's why we're taking half of the proceeds and we're going to be putting that into the Fluid staking vault so they can potentially earn their money back, the people that are paying attention. And it pays to pay attention. That's like my biggest thing in crypto. It just pays to pay attention. That's where you're going to make the most money. And if you're one of those people who can get into these mint free, because if you are a YouTube member, we're gonna put out a YouTube members video that's going to tell you to put your email address and your Unisat or Xverse wallet into this is probably going to be your Xverse wallet into the chat. So you're just all you gotta do, if you're a YouTube member, you're gonna see the video, go into the chat, put your Xverse wallet and then your email. And what that's going to do, that's going to give us your email so we can kind of message you and say, hey, the mint is coming up. That's another way of saying, yo, this is coming up. But you're only going to have a week or a couple days or whatever we decide later. And if you miss it, again, that's your problem, and it pays to pay attention, and that's kind of what we're doing. But you'll have completely free, and we kind of even want to even pay the fees if that's possible. To where you're just coming in, you're minting and just paying the Bitcoin fee of $2 or whatever it is. So you're getting the asset for free. You don't got to pay any of that because you support us. And then the rest of them, after that time block, everyone will have an opportunity to come in and get a white one, teal one, or orange one. Or we're gonna make the orange one kind of rare to where there's only 15% of that, but in the staking vault as well, it's weighted, so every orange one's going to get you the most. 2 teals will equal 1 orange, 3 whites equal 1 orange, and that's just kind of what we're going with it in the staking vault aspect of it too. But just because we're partners with Foxy doesn't mean we're not going to put this asset in multiple different places. If there's a metaverse and we can kind of partner with them in ways, we would love to put that in that game, whether it's just an asset you can use or just something you can walk around with.
Yeah, one of the things that I was going to bring up is, this weapon asset can at minimum be a wearable in the Matrix. Like you can imagine like our NatCat avatars with like a giant sniper rifle on their back.
Dude,
like that'd be cool.
Yeah, we've got to make that happen because I need that. Actually.
Yeah, me too.
And one really cool thing about the staking too is, it's going to be, the first time that Fluid is going to set up a staking vault for DMT assets. So I think that's going to be really cool. So it's like a breakthrough moment as well. And that's the great thing about the space, guys, is like, sometimes like when you're grinding, but then like I feel so blessed that like us four, we get to be in this position, man. And, thanks to the audience that watches and all that great stuff, but it's super exciting times.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, that is the coolest because we all know at some point like the zeitgeist will shift to the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's inevitable. It's programmed, as they like to say. And when that's happening, we'll like look back at these times like, this is like our hippie drum circle days where we were all banging the drum. And we're like, when are people gonna like, what we're doing? Just like the NFT bros did 4 years ago.
That's right.
Or in our case, us Metaverse guys, literally we're like in the Metaverse banging our drums. Like, when are they gonna like us, dude? Yeah. But those moments come, and you're right. Like that is a blessing in a sense, being able to kind of like witness the whole trajectory from the beginning.
Yeah, and all of us, like you're saying, you're talking about a DMT mint that's going to be operational in the Foxy Metaverse, and it's going to be a wearable in the Matrix, and you're talking about staking this asset. Like that's 4 different projects leveraging the same assets. Like you can't do that anywhere else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. And real quick too, like we as Ordinals Revolution get a lot of messages. I'm sure you guys did too, and it's about, a lot of them are art projects, and they tell us the mint price and how many there are. And the first thing we ask them is, what are you going to do with the proceeds? And what we're going to do is we want to create more DMT products. So this is just the first one. The next one we want to do, being a partner with Foxy is going to allow us to do this. But this is just an idea that we were throwing around a couple of days ago, or even today, where we want to do the next DMT set is going to be a hat. It's going to be gloves. It's going to be shorts, it's going to be boots, and depending on what we choose to make at DMT, that's what you're going to get. So you're going to need kind of all of them to have the full Ordinals Revolution set, and I think that's what we're going to do with the with the proceeds of this, is kind of get to the next stage of DMT and kind of push that next aspect of gear for the game and potentially any metaverse that allows it.
Yeah,
utilizing more elements and the science behind DMT is a part of the next kind of release that we want to focus on. So
yeah, that's exciting, and I didn't know that until you mentioned that. That's that's exciting because our focus tends to be like with DMT you can create anything that you want, right? Game assets, wearables, it's up to like the creative minds to figure out how to use it. But yeah, ultimately, like we want to make sure that there's a lot of verticals that leverage DMT in their own way, like DeFi, right? That's still left to be kind of leveraged in DMT. I'm sure someone will figure it out, but yeah, I mean, working with you guys, it's definitely an honor to kind of like put all this together. It's been one of those situations where you guys having a YouTube channel and being in the Ordinal ecosystem, we watch your content all the time just to stay ahead of what's happening, because there's so much stuff happening.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you guys are definitely plugged in.
Yeah,
whenever Fractal came to town. Expanding on, what Jeff has been working on with the BRC 420 ecosystem and Merlin's development and such. I'm like, damn, we didn't get time to really go into that.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys need to come back at some point, because I think we do. You guys definitely need to come back at some point.
Yeah, we need to deep dive into Merlin.
Yeah, that, and maybe we could potentially convince you guys to do an LDE one day, maybe.
Oh, that's right.
To expand, like, bring your community like into the metaverse with us, right?
Yeah.
So definitely appreciate you guys, like everything you guys have been doing on the educational front.
Yeah.
And we're all collectively aligned, like to push this ecosystem forward, right? And however way we see fit, like wherever we identify the value is, that's per our own like individual flavors, I guess. But at the end of the day, and I think this is like something like the whole market of participants need to kind of like understand as well. Like we really are all in the same boat.
Yeah, we really are.
Because one of the things we've been observing is like this level of toxicity and tribalism that does happen. It has been happening over the course of the year.
Yeah.
But I think at some point people will understand. It's like everybody's success, whether it's Fractal, whether it's Merlin, whether it's Tap, it's good.
Yeah.
Across the board. Like everybody should be rooting for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I agree too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys' time. We're definitely going to follow up. There's definitely some details that we need to go through for this particular mint, but happy to kind of set that up. And thank you guys so much for your time. I mean, the amount of work that you guys put into the YouTube channel and to your ability to like have these like partnerships, like it's definitely something that people need to take notice, and yeah, I mean, you guys are doing a great job. So thank you for kind of joining us and talking about everything.
Yeah, we just want to say thank you guys to, y'all are a staple in the space. We learn a lot from you guys. Y'all were really, you had a big presence, especially when we first started. And so we thank you for having us on and giving us some time on your show today. And we really appreciate it. And we can definitely set up a part 2 to this, because this was definitely fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you want us to come on your live stream too, just hit us up.
Yeah. We're done.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, we go live Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. You got or Eastern time, so I think it's
don't tell
10 for you
Shizzy that
guys.
because he's gonna ask you
But-
tomorrow.
Yeah, you might be invited every single time. I'll just send you a link, and if you guys come on, you guys come on. We do that to a lot of people. I'll just like randomly send links out
Yeah.
when someone hops on, and it gives us a little bit extra that day. Because I'll tell you what, I get up my computer at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
for 11 o'clock live stream. It is tough to find content that goes
Yeah.
an hour and a half, 2 hours every
Yeah.
single day. So you guys have an open invitation, honestly.
Hell yeah, appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, we'll just pop in one day, just like surprise you.
Yeah,
So here we are.
All right, guys. All the links will be in the description. I appreciate you guys for watching, and again, Ordinals Revolution, guys. Appreciate for you joining us, and we will catch you guys in the next podcast.
Peace.